Good morning, Ninth to Know. This is Devotionables, brief devotions for busy people. My name's Nick Rubesha. I've been with the church for 15 years. I've served in various capacities. More recently, I've been, actually continuing to serve under Tommy Sims. You might see me frequently at the front desk there, serving new people who have questions about the church. I'm a member of IC1, and I've been with Blake Ring basically from the beginning, and so it's a pleasure to meet you. For those who I haven't met, we're going to be in Psalm 41 today. So I'm going to read the entire psalm, and then we'll talk just a little about it. So Psalm 41. Blessed is the one who considers the poor. In the day of trouble, the Lord delivers him. The Lord protects him and keeps him alive. He is called blessed in the land. You do not give him up to the will of his enemies. The Lord sustains him on his sickbed. In his illness, you restore him to full health. As for me, I said, O Lord, be gracious to me. Heal me, for I have sinned against you. My enemies say of me in malice, when will he die and his name perish? And when one comes to see me, he utters empty words, while his heart gathers iniquity. When he goes out, he tells it abroad. All who hate me whisper together about me. They imagine the worst for me. They say, a deadly thing is poured out on him. He will not rise again from where he lies. Even my close friend, in whom I trusted, who ate my bread, has lifted his heel against me. But you, O Lord, be gracious to me, and raise me up, that I may repay them. By this I know that you delight in me. My enemy will not shout in triumph over me. But you have upheld me because of my integrity, and set me in your presence forever. Blessed be the Lord, the God of Israel, from everlasting to everlasting. Amen and amen. Now we see in verses 1 through 3, this reads very similar to and consistent with the Beatitudes, where Jesus tells us to bless the poor, to give to the poor, take care of the poor. And he says that in so doing, your Father in heaven will reward you openly. Now we understand this is in an eternal context, looking forward to the resurrection and the rewards there. And so we should read the psalm in the same way. And so David points to verses 1 through 3 as a type of person that we're about to contrast from verses 4 through 10. So in verse 4, he says again, O Lord, be gracious to me, heal me, for I have sinned against you. So we find David, he is in a poor and pitiable state himself. He has sinned, he is stumbling, and so his enemies now gather around him. Instead of blessing him and taking care of him, they gather around, they condemn, they wish for his death, they wish for the worst. And they're waiting for him to die. Now, this is none other than the devil. This is how he operates. This is what he does. He waits for us to stumble. He waits for us to sin. And then he whispers death. He whispers judgment. There's no mercy for you. There's no grace. There's none of that. But how does David respond? Well, he says there in verse 4, O Lord, be gracious to me. And then again in verse 10, but you, O Lord, be gracious to me. So David is leaning on grace. He's not beating his chest in self-righteousness. He is not looking for a righteous judgment to occur here. He understands that he's fumbled, but he's leaning on grace, and as should we. When we find ourselves stumbling, when we find ourselves making mistakes, when we find ourselves sinning, I think we can acknowledge the half-truth given to us by the devil that we do deserve death. We do deserve judgment. We do deserve hell. I think we can acknowledge that. But that's where grace comes in, because God doesn't operate that way. God is not waiting for us to stumble just to condemn us. That's not from the Lord. And so we lean on grace, just as David leaned on grace. We lean on what Christ did for us. We don't lean on our mistakes. We don't lean on our good decisions. We lean on Christ, who lived a perfect life for us. And so what happens is in verse 11 through 13, even while his enemies are coming out against him, David is not just asking for grace, he's believing that he's received it. And I'm just going to read it again. He says, by this I know that you delight in me. My enemy will not shout in triumph over me. He is looking forward to the resurrection here. He's looking forward to the end. He understands that though the enemy shouts now, though Satan, he shouts now, though he has some level of power now, he's looking forward to the resurrection, knowing that my enemy will not shout in triumph over me, but you have upheld me and set me in your presence forever. And from there he blesses the Lord. And this ought to be our posture. This ought to be our position. Let's be like those who are in verse 1 through 3, who walk with Christ, who seek to bless the poor. And when somebody does stumble, let's not remind them of how there's no hope for them. Let's not tell them that that they have to pull themselves up by their bootstraps, but rather to first lean on Christ and to bless the poor and to be a voice of peace. And when we find ourselves there ourselves, let's not only remember that we do deserve death, but rather rest on grace and believe that we have received it. Amen.